I think we could all agree that the NFL top 100 list was wasn't that great, but to each their own. That's their opinion. But I'm gonna try to give you a better list, and we're gonna go over spots 81 through 100 today. But before we get into that, I'm Steven Lagardelle, better known as What's Crack Lackin'. It's your boy Broshmo. Just in case you did not know, so if you're new to the channel, go ahead. Come on, bro, and subscribe. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. And if you're viewing this on the website, of course, hit that link and hit that subscription. So to kind of narrow down this list for me, I only used players that played 50% of their team snaps, whether that be on offense or defense. And what I took into consideration here was positional value, their overall performance in 2019 and 2019 alone, and overall value to the team and how much of a banger they were for their position. So trying to take that all into consideration, I've compiled this list. It's not going to have everyone you want on it, but you're more than welcome to dispute my claims in the comment section below, and let's have a good discussion. Everyone has their own opinions. But yeah, without further ado, let's get in. We're going to start at a 100. Darius Leonard at a Indianapolis, baby. And I won't lie to you, there are very few linebackers on my top 100. But honestly, if you're not making an impact in the passing game, it's hard for me to rate you that high. And last year, after a banger of a rookie year, he put out a banger of a season last year. He only had 6 missed tackles on 119 attempts, and he was about 20 points below the league average for linebackers in passer rate and when targeted. The dude was just very good. Next, we got Jason Peters. Dude was good. It was actually a down year for him, but it was pretty good by the standard you see at left tackle. He did have 10 penalties, but he only allowed 21 pressures, which resulted in 3 sacks. Next, we got Minkah Fitzpatrick out of Pittsburgh. The dude, honestly, the change in scenery and actually change in position or how he was utilized made all the difference in the world. In Miami, he was kind of used close to the line of scrimmage, sometimes slipped into the nickel. And in Pittsburgh, they just, hey, go play free safety, go play single high. The dude was phenomenal back there. He was phenomenal. In 14 games, he allowed 89 yards, no touchdowns. He had 4 pass breakups, 5 interceptions in 14 games compared to the 2 games he played with Miami, where he allowed 127 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 pass breakups, and 0 interceptions. So yeah, that's all I needed, man. Just get out of Miami. Hurts to say. At 97, I have DeMarcus Lawrence out of Dallas, of course. He may have only registered 6 sacks, but he was still in the top 20 for total pressures. Among edge rushers, he had 56. He had 28 stops. He also boasted the 7th best run defense grade by ProFootballFocus.com. So the guy, he still put up a solid year, even if, like, statistically, or for most people, where sacks mean everything, if that was kind of a letdown. And then at 96, I have Logan Ryan out of Tennessee. At first glance, it would seem he had a pretty bad season. He allowed 5 touchdowns and 766 yards. But you really got to deep dive into the analytics, because, hey, I wasn't a fan of him last season. I didn't think he was that good last season. Statistically, he wasn't. But when you dive into the analytics of this season, he had the most snaps in the slot and was among the lowest in snaps targeted and receptions allowed per snap. The guy was pretty good, and just the sheer volume of football he played kind of overblows those stats against him. Through 19 games, he only allowed 57.7 yards per game, and let's keep in mind, he played a majority of those in the slot, which is probably the most targeted position on the field. At 95, I got the Honey Badger himself, man. There was a reason that defense was more so bend don't break, but he was solid. He may not have been as good in run defense as he normally is. He had I think he had like 12 missed tackles, but the dude was phenomenal in coverage. He had 4 interceptions, 6 pass breakups. At 94, I got Kenny Clark out of Green Bay, and it's crazy that he's not talked about because the guy was 6th among interior players with 8 sacks, and he had the 2nd most pressures of any interior players at 62. He's been pretty good for this Green Bay franchise, and I think we should start appreciating him a little bit more. At 93, I got Matt Ryan out of Atlanta. Dude was, for what he had to deal with, I think them going 7-9 was pretty solid because he had the 25th worst pass blocking defense. He had the 23rd, or his defense was 23rd in yards allowed. The guy, I mean, granted, the defense kind of got better in the second half of the season, but through that first half where they went like 1-6, 1-7, you'd have to thrown up like 30 points a game just to keep his team in the ball game. So a lot of the odds were stacked against him. I think he did a good job in a very unwinnable situation, and I just want to show him a little love for that. And then at 92, I got Ezekiel Elliott, and you're probably surprised to see Zeke this I guess this low or this high on my list. I mean, when people talk about Zeke, they think he's like a top 20 player, and I mean, yeah, he's good, but he's good at a devalued position, being running back, and he doesn't, at least last season, he didn't do a lot of the things you wanted to see at running back, or at least to be a top running back. The guy had 6 drops on the season, which, I mean, if you're not affecting the passing game as a running back, then that's kind of rough. I mean, he did turn out almost 400 yards receiving, though, but he was tied for 13th in yards after contact per attempt, which was also behind his teammate who actually led the list, Tony Pollard, who was at like 4.51 compared to Zeke's 3.23. So I think 92 is a decent spot for him on this list. At 91, AJ Brown out of Tennessee. The dude was actually kind of streaky, and a lot of people want to say, well, it's when Ryan Tannehill came into town, he kind of really turned the fortunes around. Well, yeah, he did turn the fortunes around for Tennessee, but that's when Brown was most productive. But his first game, he put out a 100-yard banger. Granted, that was like on 2 receptions, but he didn't see another 100-yard game for the next 9 games. The dude, and I mean, granted, after that, he had 4 of his next 6 outings were 100-yard performances, but I just want to see a little bit more consistency, as well as Tennessee just using him more, because like I think he averaged maybe like 4 or 5 targets a game. So I want to see Brown let loose. At 90, I got Zach Ertz out of Philly. He was the 2nd most targeted tight end in the league, but the big difference between 2018 and 2019 was he wasn't catching everything. He only caught 69% of those targets this season. So, I mean, granted, he comes down with more of those. He's higher on this list, but he didn't, so he's at 90. At 89, Tyler Lockett out of Seattle. He's probably one of the best route runners in the league, and probably the biggest knock on, I don't want to say knock on him, but his yards after the catch kind of went down, but he was utilized a lot more in the slot, where it's typically harder to get those yards after the catch. And they were using DK Metcalf more as the deep threat, so still, regardless, the dude put out 8 touchdowns, went for over 1,000 yards. Still a quality year. At 88, I got Dak Prescott out of Dallas. And you'd be like, this is really low for him. Well, if the dude would just beat teams with winning records, that won't be an issue. If he would have taken his team to the playoffs, that won't be an issue. I still think Dak is a very good player, but those hurdles, especially like that he's unable to get over with the amount of talent on his offensive line, with the amount of playmakers he's surrounded with, leaves a lot to be desired for me. At 87, I got Jadeveon Clowney out of Seattle. He is probably one of the better all-around edge defenders in the league. but he just doesn't get enough pressure on the quarterback to be really among the top. I think he was, what, 33rd, or he was tied for 33rd in pressures last season with 48. But he's still solid in the run game, and it's just, I think he is a good piece to a defense, but he's never gonna be the piece. That's why no one wants to pay for him. At 86, I got Ryan Jensen out of Tampa Bay. Let's put some. I only got 2 centers on this list. Center is probably the least valuable position on offense, unfortunately. And there's a few good centers out there, but I only fit 2 onto this list, so I'm sorry. But he had a really, really good year. He only allowed 1 sack on 15 pressures. So he was pretty locked down in pass coverage. He was pass protection, and he was actually a pretty solid run defender as well. At 85, I got Carlos Dunlap out of Cincinnati, and wow, didn't think you'd see a Bengal player on this list, right? I was just as surprised as you, but he's been a great player throughout his career, and that goes for the 2019 season as well. He still put up another 10-sack season where he had 51 pressures, and if you're not doing math, that's 3 more than Clowney, and he was actually one of the best. He was the second best edge defender against the run. So yeah, I'm gonna put him over Clowney. At 84, I got Adoree Jackson out of Tennessee. The dude, he played 11 games this season. He had to miss 5, but he was very good. And actually, despite his size, he was a very good run defender because he's only like, what, 5'11", 185. So yeah, he played very well against the run. He had 6 pass breakups, and he only allowed 311 yards. So he was pretty solid last year. And then cornerback's such a volatile position. So if you're good, you're gonna end up on this list. Corey Littleton out of the Rams. Now he's with the Raiders. But this is the guy that when I compiled this list, he was the guy I wanted to move up the most. It just doesn't feel good. Just kind of put him. This feels low for him. The dude was phenomenal in coverage, and he was one of probably 4 other linebackers that were like just targeted ridiculously in coverage. And outside of Levante David, who you'll see later on this list, he actually fared very well. 7 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and he was actually very good in run defense as well. 45 run stops, as well as only 1 missed tackle on 126 attempts. Not half bad. Jimmy Garoppolo coming here at 82, and he took his team to the Super Bowl. So yeah, you're gonna end up on the top. You should end up on the top 100. The thing is, I think his stability at the position didn't really kick off until Emmanuel Sanders arrived there, and then he just kind of disappeared in the playoffs. Not Emmanuel Sanders, but Jimmy G. So that's why I couldn't put him too high on this list. And then finally at 81, Steven Nelson out of Pittsburgh. Steven Nelson, excuse me. And you probably, for you football fans, you're probably aware of him. He was part of the Chiefs not too long ago. He was the big free agent signing. I think it was like a 3-year, $19 million deal to Pittsburgh. And he did very well. He allowed a completion percentage of 51.5 when targeted. He only allowed 468 yards in coverage with 5 pass breakups. And he was a pretty solid run defender as well. But that's it for this video. Tune in for the rest of the list that'll be coming out each day. So you're going to get 79 or 80 through 61 tomorrow. But until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.